Today we're going to take a look at how do you solve a system of equation by graphing. What vocabulary you need to know when working with systems of equations. We're going to start off with one solution. It's an ordered pair that makes both equations in the system true. On a graph, systems with one solution intersect at exactly 1 point. No solution. There are no ordered pair that would make both equations in the system true. When solving a system, if the variable completely goes away and you are left with a false statement, there is no solution. When graphing, if the lines are parallel, there is no solution. Lastly, infinitely many solutions, or we say IMS. There are infinitely many ordered pairs that will make both equations in the system true. When solving a system, if the variable completely goes away and you're left with a true statement, then the answer is IMS, or infinitely many solutions. When graphing, if the lines coinciding, which means they are the same line, then there are infinitely many solutions. Some important points to remember when we're writing a solution for our system. There can only be one of three answers. One solution, that's where you're going to have your ordered pair, your x and your y. No solution will give you a parallel lines. Infinitely many solutions would give you the same line. Let's take a look at some examples. Example 1. So we're going to solve the systems here of equation by graphing y equals negative 1/3 x plus 1 and y is equal to negative 2x minus 1. So the first thing we are going to do, remember in our previous lesson, we learned how to graph an equation. And this is in slope intercept form. So the first thing we're going to do is going to start at our starting point. So our starting point would be positive 1 for the first equation. That's my y-intercept. So we're going to look for 0, 1, 0, 1. Here's my first point. My slope tells me that I need to rise 1 and run 3. I got to keep in mind your slope is negative. So up is positive and I need to go to the left 3 times. 1, 2, 3. So here's my second point. I can do the opposite. I'm going to go down 1 and to the right 3. 1, 2, 3. You want to create at least 3 or more points. Now I get to draw my line. So I got my first line for my first equation. Let's do the second equation. Y is equal to negative 2x minus 4. I am starting at negative 4. So negative 4, let's plot that first point. What does my slope tell me to do? Remember, when you have a whole number, it's simple. You can put it over 1. So negative 2 over 1. So my slope wants me to rise 2, 1, 2. And it's negative, so I need to go over 1 to the left, so we can keep our slope negative. I can continue until my points intersect. So 1, 2, 1 over. Draw my line. Once again, I'm using my ruler because I want my line to be straight so we can see the perfect point of intersection. So I'm going to create my line. So now let's check the box that applies and answer the question. It says here, the lines cross at exactly one place, right? The point where they cross. So I am going to write that point out. So when we read that point, we have 0, negative 1, 2, negative 3, and I'm going to go up on my y, 1, 2. So when we write that point, it's negative 3, 2. So we're going to check this box. Hope that makes sense. Let's take a look at example 2. So we're going to take a look at the first equation. So our starting point would be at positive 1. So here's my first point. What does my slope tell me to do? I'm going to rise and run. So I'm going to rise 2, 1, 2. It's positive, and I'm going to run 1 over to the right. Up 2 over 1. Remember, you want to create at least 3 or more points so you can see your line. 1, 2, 1. 1, 2, 1. So now I can create my line. That's my first line from the equation y equals 2x plus 1. All right, let's take a look at the second equation. My starting point would be negative 4. So my first point. What does my slope tell me to do? I'm going to rise 2, run 1. So it's positive, so I'm going to go up 2, 1, 2, over to the right 1, up 2, over to the right 1, up 2, over to the right 1, up 2, over to the right 1. So now I can take my ruler and draw my line. There we have it. So let's take a look at which box we need to check to apply our answer. So I'm looking at my 2 lines. The first box says the line cross at exactly one place. Do we see any intersection? Let's look at the second one. It says the lines are parallel, and I'm definitely looking at parallel lines. So when we have parallel lines, what type of solution do they create? And we would have to check this box right here because we have parallel line, and we would have to say we have no solution. Hope that makes sense. And let's take out example number 3. So we're going to look at our 2 equation that's in question. We have y is equal to negative 2/3 x plus 2. And we have 2x plus 3y equals 6. So I have one of my equations written in slope-intercept form and the other in standard form. We can do 2 things. We can convert our standard form to slope-intercept form, or we can use the cover-up method and solve and plot. Let's start with our first equation. So our starting point, we're going to start with positive 2. 0, 1, 2. So 0, 2 will be my starting point. What is my slope? Tells me that I need to rise 2, run 3. Keep in mind it's a negative slope. So up 2, 1, 2, and to the left 3. 1, 2, 3. So here's my second point. I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to go down 2, 1, 2, negative. Keep it negative. I go to the right 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Here's my third point. I'm going to draw my line. All right, close enough. So I'm going to create a line, and that's my first line for my first equation. The second line, I am going to use the cover-up method. So I'm going to cover up. I'm going to solve for x first. So if I cover up my y, that is going to leave me with, let's write it off to the side, 2x is equal to 6. And I get to solve. Divide both sides by 2. So my x is equal to 3. Let's cover up our x and solve for our y. So when I cover up my x, it leaves me with 3y is equal to 6. Divide both sides by 3. So I have my y is equal to 2. So now that I found my x and my y-intercept, I can go right ahead and plot. X is equal to 3, so I'm looking for 3, 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 3, 0. And I'm looking for my y-intercept, which will be 0, 2, 1, 2. What just happened there? I'm going to draw that line. Let's check off the one that applies. The first one, the line crosses at exactly one place. We don't see any intersection. The second one, it says parallel lines. My lines are not parallel. The last checkbox says the lines coinciding. That means it's the same line. What is the solution type? So we would have to say infinitely many solutions. So IMS, infinitely many solutions. So we go right ahead and check that box. Hope that makes sense. Remember, you can always pause, rewind, rewatch as many times as you like.